Hello, welcome to the session. I am Priya Bishwash from the Department of Economics, PN Das College. I would be taking an e-module on monopoly market. This is part of the first semester paper on introductory microeconomics of the general course. Monopoly is a market that has only one seller but many buyers. There exists no close substitute that the firm produces, and there are strong market barriers to entry. As the sole producer of a particular product, a monopolist is in a unique position. If the monopolist decides to raise the price of the product, it need not worry about competitors who, by charging lower prices, would capture a larger share of the market from the monopolist. Monopolist completely controls the amount of output offered for sale and act as a price maker. But this does not mean that the monopolist can charge any price that it wants. This is because government may control monopolist in terms of forcing it to reduce price or expand output with the threat of nationalization. But in general, the regulation of monopoly by the government can be done by the measures like price ceiling, average cost pricing, marginal cost pricing, taxation of monopoly, etc. Since the monopolist in the singles is the single seller in the market, firm's demand curve is the market demand curve, and the firm can exercise substantial monopoly power in framing price of its product. The market demand curve relates the price that the monopolist receives to the quantity it offers for sale. To maximize profit, the monopolist must first determine its costs and the characteristics of market demand. Knowledge of demand and cost is crucial for a firm's economic decision making. Given this knowledge, the monopolist must then decide how much to produce and sell. The price per unit that the monopolist receives then follows directly from the market demand curve. Equivalently, the monopolist can determine price and the quantity it will sell at that price follows from the market demand curve. Pure monopoly is rare, but we can take an example of monopoly market is Indian Railway. Monopolist remains the single seller in the market because other firms cannot enter the market to compete with him due to different barriers to entry, which are actually the basis of monopoly as described here. Number one is control over critical inputs or control over raw material supply. If in an industry an input is essential in the production process and only one firm can control the supply of that input or own the key resources needed for production, then that firm can become a monopolist. Other firms cannot enter the industry because they do not have access to that critical input. A classical example of monopoly that arises from ownership of key resources is De Beers, the South African diamond company. It controls about 80% of world diamond production and therefore enjoys substantial influence over the market price of diamonds. Again, until Second World War, the Aluminium Company of America controlled almost every source of bauxite. We all know that bauxite is a raw material which is required to produce aluminium and thus had a monopoly over the production of aluminium in US. The next one is patent over new inventions. Patents are exclusive rights to the production of an innovative product. Patents are granted because they encourage inventions. Without patents, many firms as well as individuals will not have much incentive to invest money and resources in research. If an important discovery is made, the owner of the patent has the monopoly power over the product. Over time, other firms develop close substitute and will break this monopoly power or patent will expire. The next one is economics of scale. In some industries, economic of scale may occur over a sufficiently large range of output. Long run average cost falls as the output expands over the relevant range of output. In this situation, a single firm can supply the entire market at the least cost. Such a firm is called natural monopolist. When there exist increasing returns to scale, a big firm can undercut the smaller ones by producing more output, experiencing experiencing lower average cost and charging lower price for its product. Example of these public utilities such as gas, water supply, electricity, telephone company, etc. To have more than one such firm in a given market will lead to duplication of supply lines and therefore higher cost of per unit output production. The next one is market franchises power, which is a monopoly can be established by the government franchises. In this case, government gives exclusive rights to sell a certain product in a certain area. Usually, this is done with taxis companies, television cable companies, garbage companies, and so on. The franchises create monopoly profit for the holder of the franchises. The last one is entry lags. In industry like steel, there is huge gestation lag. The duration between the time when the firm starts work on plants and machinery and the time when production begins, huge gestation lag prevents new firms from entering the industry. Next is output determination under monopoly. The objective of the monopoly firm is to maximize profit. For profit maximization, two conditions have to be satisfied simultaneously. Number one is necessary condition, which is at the point of equilibrium, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost of the firm. And number two is sufficient condition, which is at the point of equilibrium, the slope of marginal cost curve should be greater than the slope of marginal revenue curve. When these two conditions satisfied, equilibrium output of the monopolist will determine it. Now we know the relation between average revenue, marginal revenue and own price elasticity of demand can be written as marginal revenue equal to average revenue multiplied by 1 minus 1 divided by own price elasticity of demand. Now, if the value of own price elasticity of demand lies between 0 and 1, then from the above relation we can obtain the value of marginal revenue less than 0, which means when output sales rises, total revenue gradually declines. If the value of own price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, then we can obtain the value of marginal revenue is equal to 0. This means that total revenue does not change when output increases. Lastly, if the value of own price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, then we will have the value of marginal revenue which is greater than 1. This means total revenue rises with the rise in output sold. Now, for any production, marginal cost is always greater than equal to 0. So, if marginal revenue is less than 0, then firm will incur loss and will try to reduce output production to increase profit. So, we can conclude that a profit maximizing monopolist will always choose to produce in the elastic portion of its market demand curve, because if the monopolist produces in the elastic portion of its market demand curve, total revenue rises with the rise in output sales. So monopolist always choose to produce in the elastic portion of its market demand curve. Now we will discuss about monopoly power. By monopoly power of a firm, we mean the ability of that firm to charge a price per unit of its product which is greater than marginal cost of production. The monopolist, being the single seller in the market, enjoys sufficient degree of monopoly power. The monopoly power of a firm can be measured in terms of an index called Lerner index, named after Professor Lerner. You can see this index can be defined as L, which is equal to P minus MC divided by P, where P is the price of the product and MC here denotes marginal cost of production. Now, as I have said before, in equilibrium, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So, we can write L equal to P minus MR divided by P, putting MR in place of MC. Since we know MR is equal to price multiplied by 1 minus 1 divided by own price elasticity of demand, we put price multiplied by 1 minus 1 divided by own price elasticity of demand in place of MR, and taking P as common, we obtain L equal to 1 divided by own price elasticity of demand. Thus, we can see that monopoly power of a firm varies inversely with the price elasticity of demand of the product that the firm produces. Monopolists always produce in the elastic portion of its demand curve to maximize profit. As a result, in case of monopolist, EP is greater than 1. The value of own price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, which implies the value of L lies between 0 and 1. This is all for this lecture. Thank you so much.